All right, why don't we get started? Welcome, everybody. This is the UMassSafe CV-STAC webinar series. It's on innovative initiatives in CDL compliance and safety, and we're really happy to have you here. I'm Robin Reisman. I'm the director of UMassSafe. This is the second in a nine-part series. For more information on the whole series, go to the CV-STAC website, and you can find out more information, and you'll see in the chat box the web address for that. Last week was the first webinar, and it was on identifying the most important factors associated with severe CMV crashes. And that webinar, it was recorded and is posted on the CV-STAC website. So if you missed it, feel free to go there and check that out. Before we get started, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the CV-STAC website and give you a brief tour of it for those of you that haven't been on it. It's an excellent resource. It is part of this grant project that's funded by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and you can see it on your screen. On the home page, there's information about the upcoming webinars and events, as well as highlights on different activities that are happening across the country, as well as a place for folks to post questions or areas of interest for research. And if you go under best practices, you can find information on the summit that was held in 2016, as well as the different webinars that have happened across the project and different best practices, as well as blogs on a variety of topics that you've expressed interest in. And then on the tab for CMV Safety Summit, you can find out lots of detailed information on what occurred in that summit in 2016. And then after today's webinar, we will post this one there as well. So if you know of folks that were not able to participate but that are interested in finding out more, that's the place to go. So today we have Jeff Dickey and Sara Graham. They're from the Highway Safety Research Group at Louisiana State University. And their presentation is on contributing to LA's green reporting and how they were able to leverage university resources to help the state work on the quality of crash data and specifically CMV data. I know that for many of us, CMV crash data quality is dear to our hearts, so it'll be really interesting to hear what kinds of things they've done there. After their presentation, there'll be lots of time for questions and answers and discussion. You can go to the chat bar at the bottom of the screen and pose your questions, and Jeff and Sara will answer them. So let me just give you a little bit of background on Jeff and Sara, and then they can get started. So Jeff received his PhD in geography at Florida State University. He's engaged in geographic information systems research and GIS support for the LA crash system. And he also does spatial analysis of crash data and roadway safety characteristics analysis. Before he joined the HSRG, Jeff worked at the Stephenson Disaster Management Institute and the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness as a GIS analyst, And then he recently returned from New Mexico, where he was an assistant professor of librarianship at the University of New Mexico. His recent projects include spatial analysis of seatbelt use in crashes, as well as an estimation of local road curve characteristics from GIS data. And he serves on the Research Review Committee for the Louisiana Transportation Research Center and is a member of the TRB Standing Committee on Geographic Information Sciences and Applications. So a long background in this field. Our other speaker is Sara Graham. She received her undergraduate degree at Louisiana State University in Mass Communications in 2002. And she also received her Master's of Business Administration from LSU in 2005. And while she was working at the HSRG as a graduate assistant, she was involved in data quality and data accuracy. And after she graduated, they quickly scooped her up and made her a research associate there. And she's been working on FARS analysis since then, as well as crash data quality. So without further ado, here are Jeff and Sara to provide us information on the crash data quality work that they've done in Louisiana.
Okay, can everybody hear us?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, yeah, like she said, we're going to talk about some of our contribution to Louisiana's green reporting. We've been green for several years. So a lot of it's just our ongoing efforts to stay green at this point. And some of it's our ongoing efforts with our overall crash data. I feel like as we're working on all of our crash data and we can focus on some of the CMVs, but keeping it all clean is, the benefit to all our programs. So an overview, I was just going to tell you a little bit about the Highway Safety Research Group and how we started, our overall electronic reporting, some collaborations we did. Then Jeff's going to take it over and talk about some of our projects with location and spotting crashes and spotting relationships to crashes. And then I'm going to come back with some of our ongoing data quality efforts. Okay, so a little bit about the HSRG. We formed in partnership with the Louisiana Department of Transportation in the early 2000s. Initially, it was just to collect, enter, and store Louisiana's crash data. Most of it was, via paper reports. So being on LSU's campus, we were able to hire lots of student workers to, we collected the paper reports and then typed them in manually. When I started as a graduate assistant in 2004, we had 3 full-time staff members. And then shortly after 2005, the Highway Safety Research Group released the LA Crash software. And it's to all agencies in the state that want to use it. It's optional. It is free of charge. And we do all the support, technical support for the agencies. And pretty much they can fill out the report electronically, whether in their car or in their office. And once it goes to the supervisor, it's approved, we get it automatically. So in the early 2000s, after La Crash came out, we really pushed electronic reporting to get our timeliness measure up. So as of 2019, we have about 20 full-time positions. So you can see we've grown a lot in the last 10 to 15 years. We still collect, enter, and store. There's a lot less paper reports, but we still collect, especially electronically now. And now we've added, since we have focused on timeliness and we've got that under control, now we have multiple groups that focus on data quality, GIS, some infrastructure, some data analysis, business analytics, and then research projects. So as you can see, we grew electronic reporting a lot. In 2006, so a year after our software came out, we had about 38 agencies using the software. And again, it was optional and it was free. I personally traveled the state trying to get agencies to use it, and they were very skeptical, as in, this is too good to be true, you're giving me free software and it works well. So it was a lot of word of mouth. We got in those first 38 and then we slowly grew. What I learned is police agencies talk to each other. So as we visited one agency, they may talk to 2 other local agencies, and we grew, you can see, pretty steadily over time. So at the end of 2018, we had 239 agencies using La Crash. Still not everybody, and there's still a few that use third-party softwares, but we have grown La Crash and electronic reporting greatly in the last 15 years. So this table shows the increase in electronic reporting and the decrease in paper reporting. So in 2006, we received only about 51 reports electronically. Again, a lot of that was third-party softwares and those 38 agencies reporting La Crash. And as of 2017, which is our last complete year, we still have some 2018 trickling in. As of 2017, we were about 99% electronic. So just, a percentage or so still of paper coming in. So to show what that electronic reporting did to our timeliness, as you can see in 2006, and this is all reports, not just specifically CMVs, I'll get to that in the next slide. In 2006, we only received 39% of reports within 30 days, and only 44% of those within 90 days. So we, weren't regularly meeting that 90-day cutoff. So our average number of days from the date of the crash to the date we received it was about 121 days. 2017, again, our latest complete year, we decreased that to 7 days from the date of the crash to the date we received it, with 99% of those coming within 90 days. So great improvement with our electronic reporting. That's why we focused so heavily on it for so many years. So this is specifically to CMV crashing, our timeless reporting. So you can see we had 58% within 30 days, 72% within 90 days. So an average of 74 days in 2006. We were able to decrease that to 9 days with, again, 99% within 90 days by 2017. So we were able to better identify our CMV crashes. So in the early 2000s, we were in the 2,000 to 2,500 range of CMV crashes. By 2005 and then to currently, we hover around 4,000, give or take 500 crashes. So once we had the electronic reporting and we knew our data was better and more reliable, we were better able to identify potential CMV crashes that needed to be reported to Safety Net. So the HSRG staff specifically worked with the Louisiana Department of Safety, which is primarily our state police group, and the FMCSA. We clarified what should be reported and when. We conducted continuous testing to reduce errors in reportable CMV crashes, and that's still done today. And also, we work closely with the FARS team, and I am actually a backup analyst for FARS for our state. And I work, the Department of Transportation and Development houses our FARS team. I work with the FARS team to match our state data, all of our state data, to our FARS data. With that, I'm able to really work on the FARS MICMIS comparisons too. So I'm able to research the differences because I have, dabbled a little bit in FARS, dabbled a little bit in the state database, and dabbled a little bit in CMVs. I know just enough to be dangerous, but I can research the differences and, be able to determine, was it in FARS as a CMV, but it shouldn't have been, or was it not in the CMV because, for whatever reasons it doesn't meet the criteria, and I can describe that and make the corrections in either database as needed. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jeff so he can talk about some of the location data projects we've worked on.
So Highway Safety Research Group began locating the crashes in 2010. This is at the request of DOTD. They wanted to have more accurate location data so we could improve our ability to do analysis and research. Originally, we did all the local road crashes and a subset of problematic state road crashes. They would send us the ones they weren't able to automatically locate and send it to us, and we would do the map spotting part. We assumed responsibility for all crashes in 2017, and it's somewhere between 165 to 170,000 crashes. We've created some programs to automatically locate and validate about 60% of our crashes. We've had a programmer, a computer science major who worked for us for a while, and we've had several grad students. But the rest of those crashes, we have to use manual map spotting. So we use our specially trained undergraduate data entry technicians. These people we currently have, I believe, 19 or 20 part-time students working for us. We train them in the requirements that we need for map spotting. I like to hire people from the geography department, these people who are spatially aware, who can read a crash report, understand a map, and try to locate these crashes.
Let me interrupt just a second.
Sure.
One of the benefits of these specially trained technicians is, being that we have access to a college campus, we are able to hire these part-time students, and they're relatively cheap, cheap labor as opposed to, full-time labor. So that is a benefit of being on LSU's campus. Sorry, Jeff.
Sure. So with automatic map spotting and the manual work, we're able to locate between 90 and 95% of all our crashes. And using this information, we assign a control section and a log mile. And with that, we can link to roadway data for analysis. We get our ADT, lane width, the urban or rural, all the information that is associated with the roadway, we can attach to the crash, and that improves our analysis. But just because it's electronic doesn't mean it's correct. We have 3 different programs out there. As Sara said before, we have 2 other vendors with a crash report program. And so they send us our data, their data, or we pull the data from them, but they don't always play well together with our program. So it does cause some problems that we always have to be aware of discrepancies in the data and do a lot of data quality work to find out where something's either missing or incorrect. Some of the issues we commonly come across are no latitude and longitude. This is not currently required on our crash reports, and oftentimes a highway is given as a highway number and a milepost. Even worse than no latitude and longitude is a wrong latitude and longitude. So if the place is a crash, we think it's on a road, but this won't agree with the underlying data. We have missing, misspelled street names, local street names, or there can even be a conflict between the crash data and the narrative, the written narrative that's associated with it. Here's one problem we've seen a lot. I call it a tale of two cities. Is something wrong here? Is it two separate cities, or is something wrong? We've seen this a lot of times. And I look at it and says the pattern doesn't really match a city street. We found out that degree, minute, seconds was recorded as decimal degrees in the crash report. So they're trying to enter the data correctly, but they were using a wrong format. So we can correct some of this automatically, and then we provide feedback to these agencies where they're making this error in the hopes that they can change their methods and give us a better crash data.
Yeah, sometimes it's just notifying the agencies that there is a problem. They're not aware that they're reporting incorrectly. So if we can just notify them there's a problem, they can quit. Most of them will correct that, if it's something simple like that.
Here's another one near New Orleans, the big red blob on the bottom. We see lots of crashes in Lake Pontchartrain. There's a couple of clusters indicating they had the degree, minute, second problem there again. So this is some of the problems we see in the information. This is the data that as raw as it comes in. Then we collect, after we've corrected it and we put it back into their crash data warehouse, we get better data for better analysis and research. As specified, as we said earlier, one of the reports, one of the funded projects we worked on was seatbelt use. And with this crash data, with accurate crash data, we were able to find a statistically significant cluster of low seatbelt use. We did this analysis at the zip code level. So in the middle of the state, the northern part, pretty rural, a lot of pickup trucks, we found that the seatbelt use was low. And then in the urban areas surrounding the Baton Rouge, New Orleans, around in the southeastern part, we found a much higher seatbelt use. Another analysis we took a fatal crash rates and the distance to the hospital. So the crash rate is the color. The red hexagons have a higher fatal crash rate. And the taller hexagons, that distance is the distance to the nearest hospital. So if you are in a red area and far from the hospital, that's a higher risk of a fatality. It's a higher risk for you if you happen to be in that area. So this shows us some clusters, some areas that we should either improve access to the hospitals, improve the road conditions that might lead to a fatal accident. And we haven't yet investigated the relationship from distance to hospital. Are people not surviving because they're far from the hospital, or is the crash not discovered because it's rural? Are there other problems? So that's another thing that we've done with the data because we have good location data.
So some of the ongoing data quality that we do is we regularly monitor crashes for completeness. So we check reports by agency and we compare completeness of the driver and vehicle fields required for safety net. So specific reports with missing data are pulled and investigated weekly. And then we identify the agencies that are regularly reporting incomplete data. And again, if there's an issue that we can identify, we contact the agency, we offer training, we see if there's a problem. Sometimes it's as simple as they didn't know they needed to fill out that field consistently. They thought it was optional. And where it is optional on a program or software, even on paper, if we explain to them the importance, a lot of times that'll correct the error. If there's training or whatever issue there is, we can offer that and try to improve that at the agency level. And especially with electronic reporting, if we have the officer at the scene filling out that we tend to believe that that is more accurate than, if we're having to fix it later and do some research to find out, whether that's correct or not. So that's our presentation. Do y'all have any questions or need further information?
Thank you so much, Sarah and Jeff. I see so many similarities to Massachusetts. I'm really intrigued with what you've done. I have a question, and then folks, please think about questions that you'd like to ask Jeff and Sarah and post them in the chat box. I'm curious about the seatbelt use and the graph that you showed looking at seatbelt use. Does that all come from police-reported crashes? And do police describe some challenges with accurately documenting whether somebody was wearing their safety belt in a crash?
That's a great question. We hear back from the police officers themselves that they are reluctant to fill out any field they don't have good evidence for. They're not going to estimate speed. They can't guess if someone's wearing a seatbelt unless it's observed. But we do know that the more serious the crash, the better the data that we get collected. So we know there's probably an underestimation of seatbelt use or non-use in less damaging crashes. But that's just as recorded on the crash report by the officer.
Now, some of that, with the crash report in the narrative, they'll specify, that the seatbelt showed signs of pulling or, being stretched out, God forbid, in really serious or fatal crashes, they show that seatbelts were cut. So they can, put that pretty reliably. But, most crashes, if you're in a crash and the officer says, were you wearing your seatbelt? You can say yes. Just like if they ask, were you playing on your cell phone? No. So some of that is, we have to rely on what's reported. And the state also, and I don't think Jeff's research, that chart specifically showed it, but the state does do a survey. They have officers do like a counting survey. And then I think they do calls and do a self-reported survey. Again, that's as reliable as, it possibly can be.
Great. Thank you. I also love your student acronym.
Thank you.
That's great. Do folks have some questions for Jeff and Sarah? While people are thinking about that, so you have 2 vendor systems for electronic crash reporting in addition to your own system, is that right?
Yeah, the state police uses a system, and we have a few agencies that use a separate system. So it's just the 2 and then our software.
Mm-hmm. We have a similar issue in Massachusetts with different vendor systems and some of the same challenges that you've described about how to gather information from all of those systems with enough quality checks.
Yeah, I mean, we get stuff like for manner of collision, we have A through K and then Y. Well, they'll submit with an L, manner of collision, which is an option, where in our software we can control that. They're not allowed to enter anything that's not an A through K or Y. And it's like that for several fields. So, there's some data quality one-to-one issues.
Yeah. It does help that your system is free.
Yes.
In our software, where we restrict, if they enter a lat long, we let them know if it's in the correct parish. One of the other vendors drew a box around Louisiana. If your crash fits in the box, it's considered valid. So there's a big line of crashes in the Gulf of Mexico. It's the minimum they can enter, 28 and 90. And so we come across some of those issues. The reasons given by some of these agencies for using a different software is it integrates with their entire information system.
Records management system.
Record management system. And so we've got to find workarounds or a way to that what we provide could work with their record management system. So, that's one of the issues that we're trying to overcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do police describe challenges understanding enough how to fill out the information specific to commercial motor vehicles, the US DOT number and things like that?
They don't always express that because I think most of them think that they are doing it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
It's when we contact them, they're confused. They don't realize that they're doing it incorrectly. And then, we can correct them. Sometimes that works. Especially with CMV stuff. We do, not us at the Highway Safety Research Group, but our DPS has some contract workers, actually some retired state troopers that do travel around to agencies and specifically talk about CMV reporting.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that helps.
Yeah. I like that it's retired police that are doing that because they're more
Right.
willing to, hear from each other in that way.
Correct.
Yeah. Any questions from participants? Well, thank you very much, Jeff and Sarah. Really interesting presentation and an amazing success rate in improving both electronic reporting and the timeliness and quality of the data. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for participating. It's really great to have you here. We have a survey that's posted on the homepage of the CV-STAC webpage. We're really seeking feedback from folks about what's helpful about the webinars, what they'd like to hear more of, what topics they'd like to hear us add, any information that you can give us about what would be useful to expand upon in these webinars. So if you look on the CV-STAC website, under highlights, you'll see the first highlight is webinar feedback needed, and you can click there and get to a link. Actually, I think Jen has posted the link also in the chat box. So it would be really helpful if you guys would get on there and give us some feedback about the webinars. And we have another webinar next week, which is on future trends and updates in commercial driver's licensing. Our speaker is Kevin Lewis, and he's the Director of Driver Programs at AMBA. It should be a really interesting one, so we hope you'll join us for that. And thanks everybody for participating. Hope to see you next week.